What's up, everybody? You're very welcome along to a special video here on Mundo Sport. The reason we're both laughing is because this is my second attempt at the intro. I don't lie, I'm full transparency with you good folk.
We love bloopers.
What we thought we'd do, James, is we thought we'd look at the original top six, the old top six, and say who's the most underrated and who's the most overrated player at each one of those clubs. I think, James, we will start off in London. So let's go with Arsenal, because I know I'm going to throw you under a bus here straight away with somebody who you think is really overrated. That's why I'm doing it. I'm shithousing you right from the start. So Arsenal, James, who's the most overrated player at Arsenal?
We're going to be breaking some hearts here, Craig. I'm going to have to go with Bukayo Saka. I feel like he's talked about as the next best thing, the best thing since sliced bread, however way you want to put it. A lot of people seem to confuse the word overrated with bad. I don't think he's bad. I do think he's a top prospect, but I just think 2 goals since January, hasn't really turned up in many of the big games. His England record is kind of overrated in my opinion, even though I thought he'd done fairly good in the Euros. It's just overrated is the word that you're telling me to use, and Bukayo Saka is put in the conversation with the Greenwoods of this world, and I just don't think he should be. And that's with all due respect to what is a good talent. He's good on the ball, he does his fair share of tracking back, and I am very open-minded to hear otherwise, but I don't think he's the best youngster in the league like some Arsenal fans like to suggest, and I don't even think he's the best youngster in the Arsenal team. Therefore, I'm going to go with him as my most overrated player. So my most underrated player, Craig, even though he's probably not as much underrated no more, but with the scrutiny that came under his name when he first joined, Adam Ramsdale. Many neutrals as well as Arsenal fans writ this man off, and ever since he's done nothing but save them points and also thrashings, because let's be real, Liverpool could have won that game 10-0 if Adam Ramsdale didn't make about 6 world-class saves, and we could have broke the Premier League record for the biggest ever scoreline. I think there's a shout for Thomas Partey, because when he's not there, you see how much solidity, if that's even a word, that they're missing in that midfield. It just looks less compact. But if I had to edge someone, just based under the scrutiny that they got at the start of the season, Adam Ramsdale, top-class goalkeeper and saving them a lot of points, which is what your goalkeeper is there to do.
The reason I'm smiling, James, is because my most overrated player with Arsenal is Thomas Partey, and let me tell you why. When he signed, it was as if Arsenal fans thought that this was them about to win the Premier League again. This was them bringing in the greatest midfielder that La Liga had, that they had absolutely gone out there and robbed Atletico. But I put it to you, James, that there's a reason why Atletico were willing to let go of Thomas Partey, and it wasn't because they were sick of the Partey puns. It was because he isn't as good as people think he is. So I'm going to go with a bit of a we're both going to be getting in trouble here with Arsenal fans, let's be honest. You've gone for Saka, I've gone for Thomas Partey. And that was the most overrated player. The most underrated player at Arsenal, I think, is Martinelli. I think he hasn't got enough opportunities.
Great shout.
I've always thought that there's a player in there. And I remember, I think we tried to destabilise him before he went to Arsenal. So I think Martinelli is my shout for the most underrated player that's there.
Just to reply to your question about why Atletico Madrid let go of Thomas Partey so easily and so willingly, I think there's a few conspiracy theories. Here's my conspiracy theory. They just wanted to wear AFTV and make the Thomas Partey TTTT song. That's just all they wanted to do. They wanted to bang it.
Nobody has ever wanted AFTV to do anything. Let me just put that one out there right on the table, mate. Except maybe disappear. But look, we move to their North London rivals. Oh no, shots fired. Shout out to everyone. Hi. So move across to North London. I mean, this is the gift that keeps on giving, mate. There's so many here that we could work with, but let's get your shout for the most overrated player at Spurs.
So, my most overrated player at Spurs right now, I think obviously Harry Kane has a shout, but on his day, Harry Kane is world class, so it wouldn't be fair, and everyone knows that he's in poor form. So I'm going to say overall Højbjerg. I think when he joined the club, a lot of fans jumped onto the fact that's exactly what they needed in the midfield, but I think there's so much better out there. I think he gets talked about in the conversations of the Hendersons about how he's someone who needs to be in the team. I don't think he needs to be in that side, and I've saw a lot of Tottenham fans big him up over time. He's good for what they have now, but that's the reason why Spurs are shit. They can get much better. Therefore, I'm going to say Højbjerg is my most overrated player in that team.
Big show. And your most underrated Spurs player, if there is one?
I think even though he hasn't been as consistent as what maybe we thought when he first joined and got that goal against Manchester City, I think Bergwijn is one hell of a player, and if you can use that player correctly, then you've got someone good within the squad. Kind of like what you said for Arsenal and Martinelli. He just doesn't get given enough chances. Lucas Moura starts a lot over him, but I do think he's a big game player, and I don't think he gets enough credit for being a big game player. And I think if he was given a string of games and he was given more chances, you'd see the numbers only increase. He turns up against Manchester City every single time, not to mention as well. So if I had to say, if not the most underrated player, he's certainly one of them within that squad, and he was the first one that sprung to mind.
I'm going to go for my most overrated player first, and I'm going to go for Hugo Lloris. Because when I think about Hugo Lloris, I don't think about French captain. I don't think about World Cup winner. I think about mistake after mistake after mistake. And for every 3 good saves he makes, he drops a clanger. And when he drops a clanger, he really drops a clanger. So for me, I know Spurs fans think he's a very good goalkeeper. I've never really bought into that train of thought. So for me, I think their goalkeeper, Hugo Lloris, is the most overrated. The most underrated is not going to be a name you're going to expect me to say. It's Son. I don't think he gets enough recognition. I absolutely adore Son, and I would have him at Liverpool in a heartbeat. I think, look, there's some sides of his game that, you could talk about, but I don't think that Harry Kane takes too much of the limelight for me at Spurs, and I think Son is far better than he gets credit for. I think that has been one of the top signings of Spurs history for me, Son. So I'm going to say Son as the most underrated player, which sounds mad on the face of it.
To be honest, Craig, that argument was so good. You've just swayed my mind, because I always put Son in that category of one of the world's best. But you said who's overrated and underrated. A lot of people don't put him in that category. And now that I really, really do think about that situation, Son should be in that conversation. He should be in the conversation with the Manes and other of the best wingers in the world for sure. So I'm going to change my answer to Son, if that's all right with you, if you don't mind.
There's plenty of room on board, mate. There's plenty of room on board. Right, well, we'll stay in London and we'll go with Chelsea. I mean, difficult one this, because plenty of great players at Chelsea Football Club. Not too many poor players at the minute, but who's overrated, who's underrated?
The most overrated player at Chelsea Football Club right now, and I feel like you're going to know the answer, Craig, is Jorginho. Now again, remember, Chelsea fans, before you start spamming the dislike button and saying like, I hate James Redmond in the comments down below. Overrated does not mean bad, but in my opinion, he shouldn't be in the Ballon d'Or conversation with the likes of Lionel Messi, with the likes of Lewandowski. Even I think Kante has a shout above Jorginho, and that's not to say he hasn't done well, but he missed a few penalties in the Euros. I don't think he was one of the best players in the Italy team. I think he was sound, but to put him in the Ballon d'Or conversation just because he was a part of the sides that won the trophies, he deserves credit for being a part of those sides because he was massively important. But you asked me who's overrated, and that's why I think he is. And then underrated, I'm going to be dead honest with you, someone that doesn't get talked about enough in that Chelsea back three, because we're happy to talk about Rudiger, we're happy to talk about Thiago Silva, but Andreas Christensen, someone who's always really impressed me within that side. Ever since he was out on loan in the Bundesliga, I thought, if he's not going to go and be a mainstay at Chelsea, then why don't Liverpool try and jump on that type of a player? That was before we got Van Dijk and whatnot. Now, he's brilliant. The record with Christensen in the side is unbelievable. I think they've only lost maybe one game out of the last 47 that he's been in the back four or back three. And again, does not get the plaudits that I think maybe he should. He's got great attributes as a defender. And at one stage in time, maybe even now, if the offer was there with how young he is, I'd probably take him at Liverpool.
You know what? I would be in agreement with you with regards to Jorginho. So I'm going to pick a different name just because I want to try and shake it up a little bit. So for me, my most overrated player at Chelsea Football Club is probably Lukaku, because I don't think he is as good as people believe that he is. I mean, yes, he went and did a lot better at Inter Milan, no doubt about that. But come back to I still think he's a bit of a flat track bully. I don't think he shows up enough against the big teams, and I don't think that you'll see him firing Chelsea to a second European Cup this season. So I think he's a great player, but again, we're talking overrated or underrated here. So I'm going to go for Lukaku being overrated.
Do you think that there's any substance to Chelsea being a better side without Lukaku by any chance?
I'll be honest with you, mate. I don't watch enough of them to compare to them with and without Lukaku, but I think it was an amount of money that could have potentially been spent better. if you're looking for it. I understand that they wanted a focal point and stuff. I understand that he said his heart was at Chelsea, but I just think again there could have been a better signing made with that money. The most underrated player for me is N'Golo Kante, because no matter how much you rate N'Golo Kante, you're still underrated N'Golo Kante, because N'Golo Kante is absolutely amazing. And look, you've seen at the weekend, he can do everything. Man can score, he can play in defensive midfield role, he can play box to box. He's got a smile that lights up your soul. So I'm going to say N'Golo Kante, because everybody should rate N'Golo Kante more than they do, because he's damn good.
He's amazing. And shout out to Mason Mount, who, even though I never put him as my most underrated player, I think he deserves to be in that conversation as well, because he is someone who I think is brilliant and does not get talked about enough by the Premier League football fans.
Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's laugh at Manchester United in a multitude of ways. So, James, is there an underrated player at Manchester United, I ask you?
Oh, where do you even start? Underrated player at Manchester United Football Club. I feel like, do you know one person that I'm going to go with, just because I don't think he gets talked about in the prestige that he should? Donny van de Beek. And a lot of people know there's a good player there, but I believe he's actually really good, and I think if he played regularly for Manchester United, and as a regular Premier League watching fan, I watch a lot of the Big Six, so I see a lot of Manchester United as well. Anytime he's played, he hasn't really disappointed me, even a part of a bad bunch. He scored the other day in the 4-1 defeat against Watford as well. I think there's just a brilliant player there, someone who I'd happily take at Liverpool as an option for the squad and try and compete for places for sure. His ability is great. He came through the Ajax system. Underrated by the coach in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He might even get underrated by future coaches just with the depth they've got. And, players like Fred, they were £50 million signing, so you've got to try and make it work. They're different type of players, but I think Donny van de Beek is twice the player that Fred is, and maybe 5 times the player that McTominay is. So I'd say he's the most underrated. And then the most overrated, Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw is terribly overrated. Roberto Carlos, it took him about 8 years to become Roberto Carlos, and people talk about him like he's this new spring chicken. Listen, it's alright to just turn up to the party last season, but this season you've saw exactly what he is. A very sound left back on his day, but is very inconsistent. And to put him in the conversation with Robertson, for me, and again, Craig, I am saying this when they've got an £85 million Maguire. I am saying this when they've got Pogba, who's supposed to be the best midfielder in the world, yet doesn't do it in a Manchester United shirt. I'm saying this about other players, like even Bruno, who he's not overrated because he does get the numbers and stuff, but he doesn't always, week in, week out, have a great performance, all-round game. That's why I'm going to... But if I had to say out of anyone, comparing Luke Shaw to Andrew Robertson is like comparing apples and oranges. It was a stupid shout, and that's why I'm going to say he's my most overrated.
I like it. I like your thinking. Right, I'm going to go with the most underrated first, and I'm going to go with this because it's the view I get from the Manchester United fans that I speak to. So I asked them about the players at the club. You'll always hear about Mason Greenwood, undoubted talent. You'll hear about Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I'll hear about everybody, but I don't hear enough love for Marcus Rashford. So I'm going to say that Marcus Rashford is the most underrated player at Manchester United, because I think Marcus Rashford, with a good coach, the coach who will fill him full of confidence, the coach who will get him more tactically astute, I think Marcus Rashford, I think people want to scapegoat him because of the other excellent work that he does for charity and stuff like that and feeding hungry kids in England. So I'm going to go with Marcus Rashford as my most underrated player. My most overrated player, it's a toss-up between Paul Pogba and Dean Henderson, because to hear Manchester United fans actually ask who should start between Dean Henderson and David De Gea, I think is an insult to the great man that is David De Gea. So I'm going to go. I'm doing it, James. I'm pulling the trigger. I'm going to go with Dean Henderson being the most overrated player at Manchester United. And I think he's got some cheek as well to be stomping his feet a little bit, looking for a starting place. I think David De Gea is 10 times the keeper that Dean Henderson will ever be. He was great at Sheffield United, but when you're playing for Sheffield United and you're getting 30 shots, 25 shots against you a game, much like Simon Mignolet when he was at Sunderland before he came to Liverpool, it's a lot easier to look good than when you're in a team that may dominate possession, dominate the ball, and you have to switch off, or you can switch off, but you might have nothing to do for 20 minutes. So that's why I think Dean Henderson needs to shut up and know his place, basically. He's no David De Gea. So that
should have never been a conversation. You're absolutely right. Good shout. I think even a little shout out for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. The fact he was ever put into the same conversation of the Trent Alexander-Arnolds of this world is ludicrous to me. So they've got quite a few who go into that category for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna use Reece James in the Chelsea one for the most overrated because I'm sick of the comparisons to Trent, like yourself. But I thought I'd let
He's
that one
brilliant
slide.
though. He's
He is. That's
brilliant
why I
though,
let
Reece
it slide
James.
because he is
He's
good.
brilliant. Yeah.
He is good. Right, 2 to go. Will we? Well, I'll tell you what. We'll shake it up. We'll go with us at the minute, James. We'll go with Liverpool. We'll leave Manchester City to last. So, who is the most overrated and who is the most underrated at our beloved club?
Oh, I don't like this. Oh,
I know,
really
it's horrible,
don't like
isn't
this. To say someone's overrated wearing a Liverpool shirt. And it's actually very difficult to come up with this because I'm sure neutrals could look at this and be very, like, you know, Trent because he can't defend sound, you know what I mean? Like, but Trent this season has been immense. If I had to go with someone who is overrated...
That's horrible, isn't it?
This is a joke. My most overrated player at Liverpool, Craig, and I feel like people are really going to misunderstand what I say here, but just because I feel like a lot of people were saying he should get into the team a bit too soon over Joel Matip, I'm going to go with Konate. I feel not bad. He's gonna be great. Listen, Ebu, my G, I love him so much. But to say that he should be starting over Joel Matip, who I think has been a better performer than Van Dijk this season, I just thought that suggestion was a bit mad. I know he had a great game against Manchester United, and I'm sure his pace and his power and his physicality would be amazing in certain fixtures, and I am a big advocate for changing your team for what best suits the opposition. That being said, Joel Matip doesn't get talked about enough for me, and I feel like I've kind of just told you who I think my most underrated player in the team is as well, but Konate should not be getting into that back four just now at the young age of 22. Again, not a bad player, and one day I think he's going to be one of the best centre-backs in the world, for sure. Underrated player, as I've just mentioned, Joel Matip, doesn't get put in the top 5 centre-backs in the league for me, and that's where he should be. He should be in that conversation with the Ruben Diaz, Virgil van Dijk, and every trophy that we've won, Premier League and Champions League, you have to attribute a big contribution to that, to Joel Matip, because even towards the dead end of the season, where we won the Champions League and we just about missed out on the Premier League, Matip was an ever-present stay in that defence and was doing a great job, stopping out a lot of crucial tackles, and people don't talk about this on the ball play, the fact he dribbles into the opposition's halfway line to create for the team. He won the free kick against Arsenal as well. He's such an important player for our club, and probably doesn't even get the respect from our fans. We love him, but we don't realise just how good he is, and that is how good Joel Matip is, Craig.
I'm torn here, James. I really am. I've got 2 answers for the most underrated and none yet for the most overrated. So, which way will I go with this? Right, I'm gonna go loyal. I'm gonna stick to my countryman. I don't think people realise how good a goalkeeper Caoimhín Kelleher is, and I don't know if he'll ever get a chance to really show it, mate, because he's got Alisson Becker ahead of him, and with all due respect, Alisson Becker is a machine. He's a god of a man. Brilliant. So I was tossing it up between Curtis Jones and Caoimhín Kelleher, because I think maybe a lot of people have glossed over Curtis Jones at the minute because of how good Harvey Elliott's been since he came into the team. But I'll stick with Caoimhín Kelleher. Oh God, my most overrated. This is the one that gets us in trouble, isn't it? This is the one where we're going to be absolutely hated by our own fan base, even more so than some of them do. So the most overrated player for me, I can't believe I'm about to utter these words, but it's Thiago. It's Thiago, because I think people see him as the Messiah, and I have yet to see enough of him as the Messiah. We're talking about overrated, not me saying he's not good, not me saying.
I don't like that answer.
It's a horrible answer. It's horrible. I hate myself to say it, but I want to see the Thiago that I was doing laps around my back garden for when we signed. I want to see the Thiago that was making me dance around my living room and singing the song. And I hope to see that Thiago, but I think in some Liverpool fans' heads, every time he touches a ball, it's the best touch of a ball there's ever been in the history of football. And that's kind of where I went with it. But yeah, it's a tough one, man. It really is, because I could have taken a cop out and saying Divock Origi's the most overrated because of the big moments that he's had. But you know, and we're going big here, so we're not holding back. We're giving the people honesty, and that is unfortunately my answer. And I think that mainly because I hope he absolutely shows what I'd hope for. The last one, Manchester City, could be a tough one. This, James, could be a tough one. There's a few. I think there's a few shouts for underrated players at Manchester City anyway, but it's a difficult one. Last one of the big 6, so underrated and overrated.
We just want to clarify as well, after those Liverpool shouts, that this is absolutely overrated and underrated. We are not saying all of these are bad players.
I can see the headlines now. James Redmond hates Canade. I can see it now.
That'd be the worst, because I'd never want to meet Ibu and him to have that impression, because I absolutely adore the man, and I'm sure, and I know you adore Thiago, so I don't want people to get the wrong idea. As for Manchester City, the most overrated player in that team.
This one was actually really easy for me to come up with.
Right, do you know what? I feel like, do you know what, Craig? I think we might have a similar answer. I'm going to go with Ruben Diaz. Now, the reason why I'm going to go with Ruben Diaz is simply for the fact he's compared to Virgil van Dijk in too little time. It's actually more the fans' fault why I'm saying he is overrated opposed to his actual ability, because he is world class, and I believe he is going to be a phenomenal centre-back for Manchester City in the Premier League and do a lot of bits for them. But right now, there's levels to this shit, and Virgil van Dijk is somebody who has proven it. He's been here, he's been doing the damn thing, and he's came back from a serious injury, and even though some people will say he skipped a beat, I still think he's been one of the best, if not the best, you know, along with Joel Matip and a few Chelsea shouts, the best centre-back in the league. So that's my overrated. My underrated, again, I want to give 2 nominations, and then I'll give what my actual answer is. The first nomination is Bernardo Silva, because I think his ability is absolutely not talked about enough, and I think the importance that he has to the City side is not talked about enough, because it gets shadowed by De Bruyne, the £100 million signing in Jack Grealish, you know, even Ruben Diaz in his own right. And then I'm also going to go with Ilkay Gundogan, because I think when he had that goal scoring form last season, when he was a little bit more free to go forward, I think that was when he was getting given a bit of respect. But the second he dropped deep again and he weren't getting them goals as frequently, people just stopped talking about him. And it's why we live in an age where you know, it's why I think Thiago is a victim of his own success, because he's never been a goal scorer, he's never been an assist player, he's not someone who just gets numbers. He's great for everything else that he does. Gundogan, very similar player, except he still gets numbers as well. So if I had to edge someone who just doesn't get talked about enough, I'm probably going to go with Bernardo Silva, because, you know, even when we talk about the best of the best Portuguese players, not really in that conversation, and he should be.
He should learn to applaud guards of honour a little bit more as well, by the way, what we're talking about.
He's certainly a knobhead. He's a knobhead, but he's a good player.
Right, I'm going to go 2 different routes with this one. So my most overrated player is somebody that has annoyed me for many, many, many years, and that's Kyle Walker. I think Kyle Walker is one of the most overrated players. Gareth Southgate keeps going to him. I see a tremendous athlete, but I see somebody who, in my opinion, hasn't got the greatest of football knowledge upstairs. I think, you know, he can get up and down all day for you, but I'm sick of hearing people say how good he is. I don't rate Kyle Walker as highly as others. And my most underrated, I'm going to take a different angle on this one. I'm going to say Cole Palmer, because I don't think people understand how good this young man is going to be when he comes through. I remember speaking to a couple of friends who are Manchester City fans, shout out to Esteemed Company, and he was saying, this kid's legit. This kid is a very, very, very good player. So we started to pay a little bit more attention to him. You know, I think he's going to have a similar impact as Foden has at Manchester City. I think that he's a fine footballer. So for me, I'm going to go a little bit different, but I'm going to go with Cole Palmer. I think he's going to have a massive impact at Manchester City in the long term. So
I think that's a great shout.
This has been fun, Mr. Redmond. This has been an interesting one. And look, I tell you what, I'm going to be reading the comments on this one. Definitely, I'm going to be seeing what people have to say. Let us know your thoughts.
Having my popcorn along with it, you know what I mean? One of them ones, because some of the comments are going to be funny. Let's just say that. That could even be an understatement. And
we want your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. How deluded are James and I? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget, drop a like, hit the subscribe button as well. Thank you very much to my partner in crime here, Mr. James Redmond.
Bam.
Thank you to you guys for watching, and we will be back on Mundo Sport real soon.